It was a rare, foggy morning in downtown Atlanta. The streets pulsed with routine life baristas, fumbling with lids, buses, exhaling steam, and business people glued to phone calls. Maria Roret clutched her daughter Ava's hand as they waited patiently at the bus stop on Peachtree Street. She wore a sleek navy trench coat that accentuated her tall, graceful frame, while her daughter, an exceptionally bright 6-year-old, bounced beside her in a sunshine yellow dress, holding a book titled How to Build a Robot Dog. Despite the noise of the city, Maria's mind was elsewhere. She had a meeting in 45 minutes to pitch a tech acquisition that could change her company's future, Roret Tech. Yet here she was, opting for the bus over her BMW, hoping to teach Ava humility. Just then, Ava tugged at her hand. "Mommy, look over there. That man? He looks familiar." Maria followed Ava's gaze to a nearby bench, slumped over unshaven and dressed in mismatched clothing. He looked like he hadn't had a proper meal or shower in weeks. His head hung low, a knit cap obscuring most of his face. "Don't stare, honey," Maria whispered. But Mommy Ava whispered back, eyes wide with innocent certainty. "That's Daddy." Maria blinked, stunned. "What? That's my daddy. I saw his photo." Maria felt a strange flutter in her chest. Her daughter had never asked about her father, at least not with such conviction. Maria had given birth alone after a traumatic car accident 6 years ago, the very night her memory had betrayed her. The child's father was a shadow in her mind, a face erased by pain and time. She crouched down, smoothing Ava's curls. "Sweetheart, we don't know that man. It's just a coincidence. But we do know him. His name is Henry Olaf. Look." Ava unzipped her tiny backpack and pulled out a slightly crumpled photo. Maria took it and gasped. It was the same man or someone remarkably like him, though cleaner, confident eyes filled with purpose. Her heart skipped a beat. Maria stood up, her pulse racing. She had no reason to believe Ava, but something in the child's certainty rattled her. She took a tentative step forward. "Sir," her voice was soft but firm. The man didn't move. "Excuse me, sir. Are you Henry?" He stirred slowly, raising his face. His eyes met hers, blue-gray, distant yet somehow painfully familiar. And then he spoke. "Henry, I don't know." Maria took a half-step back. "You don't know your name?" He winced. "No. I woke up in Grady Hospital 5 years ago after an accident. No ID, no memory. Just this jacket." Ava rushed forward and hugged him. "Daddy?" He blinked, shocked. His hands hovered in the air, unsure whether to hold the child or push her away. "I don't understand," he murmured. "It's okay, Daddy. You're home now." Maria felt her world spinning. The man looked like the photo. The timelines matched. Ava had never clung to a stranger before. Could it really be? She took a breath. "Come with us." Maria's modern home sat perched on the hills overlooking Atlanta, a haven of glass and steel, where silence and sunlight ruled. Now that quiet sanctuary hosted a stranger who might be her past. Henry sat on the edge of a leather sofa, shoulders slumped, a fresh white shirt too crisp for someone who'd lived on the streets. Ava flitted around him like a fairy, giggling as she explained the smart thermostat. Maria watched from the kitchen, her heart a mess of logic and longing. She dialed a number on her phone. "Dr. Chen." "Yes, I need a paternity test. Urgently." Henry stepped out of the guest bathroom, freshly shaved and human again. Maria stared, transfixed. The man was undeniably handsome. Beneath the grime, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, a scar barely visible under his left eyebrow. Thank you, he said, standing awkwardly in the hallway. For what? Letting me stay, feeding me, treating me like I matter. Maria cleared her throat. You may be my daughter's father. I don't know, but Ava believes you are. That's enough, for now. They locked eyes. Something sparked. Recognition, perhaps, or regret. The results are in, Dr. Chen announced. Maria clenched her phone. Her fingers trembled. Henry Olaf is indeed the biological father of Ava Roret. Maria dropped into her office chair, eyes wet. Somewhere deep inside she had known. The memories might have been erased, but the connection remained. She looked up to see Henry watching her from the doorway. It's true, he asked. She nodded. Henry took a step back. But how? Who was I? What did I do? Maria rose slowly. You were a man I once trusted. I don't know why anymore. Henry now had a room, clean clothes, and a tentative routine. He cooked breakfast, walked Ava to school, tried to recall the fragments of a life he couldn't grasp. Maria, meanwhile, had to confront more than memory loss. She began to feel again, and that terrified her. She came home one evening to find Ava curled in Henry's lap, the two whispering over a fairy tale. Maria stood at the doorway, the scene pulling tears from her. She turned away quickly, but not before Henry looked up. You okay? She forced a smile. Yes, just tired. But she wasn't tired. She was falling. The early morning breeze slipped through the half-open window, carrying the scent of gardenias from the backyard and brushing gently across Maria Roret's bare shoulders. She stood by the kitchen counter, pouring hot water into a French press. Her robe loosely tied, her expression unreadable. She could hear faint laughter from the upstairs hallway. Ava and Henry. The sound, as warm and fragile as unfamiliar, struck her in the chest. Since when had her house held laughter that wasn't pre-recorded by cartoons or manufactured for social appearances? Maria stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. She wasn't ready for the feelings unraveling inside her. The joy, the confusion, the strange pull toward a man technically a stranger, yet inexplicably tethered to the most precious thing in her life. You're up early, Henry said softly, appearing at the doorway with Ava perched on his back like a koala. I had a lot on my mind, Maria murmured without turning around. Like how you still don't trust me, he replied, a hint of ruefulness in his voice. She turned slowly. That's not entirely true. Henry lowered Ava to the ground and gave her a gentle pat. Grab your backpack, champ. I'll meet you by the front door. When Ava skipped off humming a tune, only she seemed to know Henry took a hesitant step toward Maria. You still think I'm pretending, he said. Maria let out a sigh. I'm terrified of believing in something I can't verify. He nodded. That makes two of us. Maria's heels clicked with measured rhythm on the polished marble as she entered the boardroom. She was composed, sharp, and once again wrapped in business armor. Yet beneath that poise, the storm brewed. Ms. Roret, her assistant, said, the acquisition deal with Helix AI has been finalized. They've accepted the offer. Maria nodded, but her thoughts were miles away. Helix AI had been her father's dream project, an artificial intelligence interface that could predict emotional needs. He'd poured his savings into its development before his untimely death. Good. She whispered more to herself than anyone else. Her assistant tilted his head. Is everything all right, Ms. Roret? Just ghosts, she said. From a life I thought I buried. Henry sat across a table from a public records clerk. The clerk tapped a few keys, then looked up. Sorry, Mr. Miller. What did you say? Yes. That's what they called me at the hospital, Henry replied. There's no record of a Miller matching your fingerprints. We did a partial match run on Henry Olaf as well. And still nothing. Henry swallowed. What if someone erased me? The clerk offered a sympathetic shrug. You might have been declared dead. It's not unheard of, especially if your ID was never recovered. Henry walked out into the Georgia sun dazed. He didn't know who he was, but he knew one thing: he would not be erased. Maria stood at the mirror, unfastening her earrings. She barely noticed Henry watching her from the hallway, a glass of water in his hand. You changed your perfume, he said. She paused. You remember that? No, he confessed. But I remember how I felt when I smelled it. It's like missing something I didn't know I lost. Maria didn't reply. Silence settled between them like silk. Ava told me she wants a sibling, he added. Maria turned sharply. Did she? Henry chuckled. She said it would make the family feel more real. This isn't a game. I never said it was. Then stop acting like this is easy, she snapped. Henry's smile faded. Nothing about this is easy. Least of all, loving someone who's forgotten you. Maria's breath caught. That word, love. It echoed like thunder in the quiet of her mind. Maria sat nervously across from Dr. Sandel, flipping through her phone, though she wasn't reading anything. The scans show that Henry has signs of prior cranial trauma consistent with memory loss, the doctor explained. Can it be reversed? Difficult to say. Sometimes memory returns with a trigger. Sometimes it never does. Maria closed her eyes. He deserves to know who he was. Perhaps Dr. Sandel said gently, but who he is now might matter even more. In a corner office overlooking the city skyline, Ethan Olaf swirled a glass of scotch and stared at the headlines on his tablet. Mysterious tech investor buys stake in Helix AI. His assistant entered, voice low. We may have a problem. Ethan arched a brow. Do I look like I enjoy surprises? The name on the Helix AI papers. Roret. Ethan sat up. Maria Roret. Yes, and there's more. Our contact at Grady Hospital says someone matching Henry's description was treated there 5 years ago. No ID. The scotch glass cracked in Ethan's hand. Find out where she is. If Henry's alive, I want to be the one to put him back in the grave. Henry stood alone under the starlit sky holding Ava's toy drone. He couldn't explain why, but the feel of it, the remote in his hands, the way it dipped and soared, sparked something. He saw flashes. A blue conference room. A red silk tie. A voice shouting his name. Henry. Don't sign that. He dropped the remote. The memories came in bursts. Shards of a shattered mirror. They didn't fit yet, but they were real. Henry knocked lightly. Maria. She looked up from her laptop. Can't sleep. Can I show you something? Curiosity sparked in her eyes. She followed him downstairs, where he had set up the toy drone on the kitchen island. I think I used to design these, he whispered. He flipped open the compartment and revealed initials burned faintly into the plastic HO. Maria's hands trembled. Henry Olaf. He nodded slowly. It's starting to come back. Not everything, but enough to know I wasn't just some executive. I was an innovator, a dreamer. He looked at her, his voice thick. And you were my home. Maria stepped back. Her heart pounded. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. Instead, she whispered, I need time. Henry offered a sad smile. I'll wait. Ava lay curled up beneath a galaxy-themed blanket. Maria kissed her forehead, brushing aside a curl. Mommy. Yes, sweet pea. If Daddy remembers everything. Does that mean you two will fall in love again? Maria paused, her voice soft. Some things take more than memory to rebuild, Ava. They take courage. Ava yawned. You're both courageous. Maria lingered at the door, heart heavy with the weight of a future she wasn't sure she deserved. Downstairs, Henry sat alone in the dark, staring at a family photo Ava had drawn in crayon. 3 stick figures, 1 house, 2 hearts, and a sky full of stars. Maria Roret sat alone in her reading nook, cradled by the glow of a single antique lamp and the soft hush of falling rain tapping against the windows. She held a book in her lap, but her eyes weren't on the pages. They lingered on the past, on Henry's face, on the way Ava had started drawing hearts with all 3 of their names inside, and on the confession nearly unraveling "You were my home." The sentence had replayed in her mind for days now. She wanted to forget it. She also wanted to believe it. But belief was not a habit she had nourished well over the years. Her thoughts were interrupted by a quiet knock on the doorframe. "I can't sleep either," Henry murmured. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and flannel pajama pants, unassuming, comfortable, and maddeningly handsome in the dim light. Maria gestured toward the seat across from her. He sat there, knees almost touching the air, humming with unsaid things. "I was thinking about my daughter," she said, voice husky. "She doesn't know heartbreak. She believes love is permanent, unbreakable." Henry tilted his head. "Maybe she's right. Maybe we just forgot." Maria exhaled slowly. "You're poetic when you're sleep-deprived. Or I'm just finally saying what matters." The trio had spontaneously decided to spend the Saturday morning out. Ava bounced excitedly as they entered the cozy cafe, the scent of roasted beans and cinnamon filling the air. "Mommy, can I get the rainbow cookie?" Maria smiled. "If you promise not to eat it before your bagel deal." Henry watched the 2 of them, a curious warmth blooming in his chest. He'd been included in this simple outing without ceremony, without questioning. It was domestic, mundane, and somehow sacred. When they sat by the window, Ava launched into a detailed story about the robot she wanted to build, using her hot chocolate as a visual aid. Maria listened with that half-tilted smile Henry was growing addicted to. "You're going to change the world one day," Ava Maria said softly. "Not alone," Ava answered, her tone surprisingly wise. "All geniuses have partners." Maria blinked, caught off guard. Henry raised his cup in silent salute to the tiny philosopher. While Henry was out picking up groceries, Maria heard the doorbell. She opened the door and froze. Standing before her was a woman in a fitted burgundy suit, red lipstick, pristine curls, pinned tight. "Hello, Maria." Still as elegant as ever. Maria narrowed her eyes. "Naomi, I should have known you wouldn't stay in Paris forever." Naomi DuPont, Henry's former publicist and rumored fiancée years ago. "May I come in?" Maria hesitated before stepping aside. "I heard Henry might be alive," Naomi said, walking in like she owned the floor beneath her. "I didn't believe it at first, until I saw a photo." Maria folded her arms. "And you came to what rekindle your claim?" Naomi gave a cool laugh. "Don't be crass. I came to say goodbye." Maria studied her wary. "Goodbye." Henry was many things, but he was mine for a long time. When he disappeared, I mourned him. When you came along, I hated you for taking what I had no right to keep." Maria flinched. Naomi softened, just slightly. "But now I see you, and I see Ava. And I know that I was never home to him." Maria's defenses began to falter. Naomi reached into her clutch and pulled out a small velvet box. "He had this made before the accident. He told me he was going to give it to someone that night." She placed the box in Maria's hand and walked away without another word. Maria opened it. Inside a ring, rose gold, with a deep blue sapphire cradled in white diamonds. Her breath caught. Henry returned to find Maria on the balcony, the ring box beside her untouched, and her tea. He stepped forward, noticing the tension in her posture. Bad day. An old ghost stopped by. Naomi Maria turned slowly. She said you were going to propose. Henry swallowed. I don't remember everything, but I remember the feeling, the certainty. He looked down at the ring. It was meant for you. I didn't make it in time. Maria touched the ring, but didn't put it on. Don't propose to me with borrowed memories, Henry. I want the man who knows me in this life, not just the one who loved me in the last. Henry nodded solemnly. Then let me earn the new version of us day by day. Henry tucked Ava in, brushing a curl from her cheek. Daddy. Yes, Starshine. Will you be here tomorrow? He blinked. Of course. Why? Because Mommy said that some people leave when it gets too real. Henry's heart twisted. He leaned in. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Ava yawned. Then stay forever. He kissed her forehead, whispering, Forever sounds perfect. Ethan Olaf wasn't sleeping. He stared at the forensic report in front of him. The DNA results were in. Ava Roret, 99.96% biological match with Henry Olaf. So the bastard lives, he growled. He turned to his assistant. It's time to visit Atlanta. Set up a press conference. Under what pretense? Ethan smiled coldly. A family reunion. Maria and Henry walked together, not holding hands but close. The space between them now had the hum of beginnings. I like you in gardens, Henry said, glancing sideways. You look less guarded. Maria arched a brow. You prefer me vulnerable. I prefer you to be honest. She stopped walking. Then let me be honest. I'm scared. I've built my life around independence, trusting you again, letting Ava believe in you. It terrifies me. Henry reached out gently, brushing his knuckle along her jaw. I'm scared too. But bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's what we choose despite it. Maria looked into his eyes and saw no memory but a man reborn. And for the first time she took his hand. Her assistant burst through the door, tablet in hand. Ms. Roret, you need to see this. On the screen, a live press feed from Chicago. Ethan Olaf, standing at a podium, his voice smooth and rehearsed. My brother Henry Olaf was presumed dead, but recent developments suggest otherwise. I am prepared to offer a full welcome back to our family, as long as he's ready to face the truth of what he left behind. Maria stared. Then Ethan added, including the child he never acknowledged. Maria's fingers curled into fists. So this was war. The air in Maria's office turned thick with disbelief. The moment Ethan Olaf uttered Ava's name on live television, something within her cracked. Not from panic nor from fear, but from the sense of being hunted. Again. She rose from her chair, her frame steady despite the tremor coursing through her spine. Across from her, Henry stared at the screen silently, fists clenched. The rain outside intensified, streaking the windows like the sky was trying to weep for her. He used her name. Maria whispered. Henry exhaled sharply. He used our daughter as a weapon. Maria's jaw tightened. He doesn't get to do that. Not again. Not to me, and never to her. Ava had been tucked into bed early, unaware of the storm brewing around her. Downstairs, Maria and Henry sat opposite each other with a glass of wine. Neither drank. What do you want to do? Henry asked quietly. Maria looked up at him, her expression unreadable. I want to end this with elegance, not chaos. Ethan doesn't respond to elegance. He only understands control. Then we control the narrative. Henry tilted his head. You're thinking of going public. Not just public. Transparent. You tell the truth, Henry. On your own terms. not through his lens. Henry hesitated. I barely remember who I was. How do I stand in front of the world and pretend I do? Maria set her glass down. You don't need to pretend. Just tell them who you are now. He looked at her for a long moment. And what if they don't believe me? She leaned forward. Then I will. The press conference was arranged within hours. Invitations were discreetly extended. Only trusted outlets allowed. No leaks, no surprises. Maria stood behind Henry as he took the podium, a backdrop of Atlanta's skyline glowing behind him. His hair was neatly styled, his suit crisp, but the weight of memory loss still shadowed his eyes. He cleared his throat. My name is Henry Olaf. I was presumed dead 5 years ago. I survived an attempt on my life. I lost everything. My memory, my identity, my name. The cameras clicked. In that time, I lived without titles, without wealth, without knowing I had a daughter waiting to meet me. A soft murmur spread. Maria watched from the wings, heart clenched. I stand before you, not as the man I was, but as the man I choose to be. A father, a partner. Someone is learning to earn his second chance. When it ended, no questions were allowed, only silence. Then a rare thing happened. Applause. Henry loosened his tie as they exited the parking garage. Maria walked beside him, quiet but firm. You were brilliant, she said. He smiled faintly. I kept thinking about Ava and what she'd say if she were watching. She'd probably say you need a cape and a theme song. He chuckled. I'd settle for one typical day. Maria looked over. Normal doesn't suit you. Before he could reply, a figure stepped out from the shadows. So it's true. You really are alive. Henry froze. Ethan Olaf. Dressed in tailored navy. Ethan exuded the kind of practiced charm that made Maria's skin crawl. His smile was sharp, his eyes void of remorse. Touch her again, Henry said, voice low and dangerous, and I'll finish what the courts won't. Ethan smirked. Careful. You just admitted you remember. That might come in handy during the hearing. What hearing? Maria demanded. Ethan turned to her, feigning politeness. Custody. Since Henry has resurfaced and claims to be a father, we should let the law decide what kind of man he truly is. Maria stepped forward. You won't take Ava. I don't want Ava, Ethan said coldly. I like the company. And if dragging you through a courtroom gets me there, so be it. Maria sat across from a gray-haired attorney who frowned thoughtfully at the thick file in front of her. He can petition for a guardianship inquiry. It won't hold, especially with your history of sole custody and his record of absence, but he can use it to stall your operations, freeze assets, discredit your leadership. Maria exhaled. He knows he can't win. Winning isn't the goal. Disruption is. Henry sat in Ava's room, helping her sort a set of pastel-colored building blocks. She built a tall tower, then glanced at him with that mischievous smile he loved. Daddy, did you build towers when you were little? He smiled. Probably, but mine always fell over. She nodded wisely. Mine do too. But that's why you build again. Henry looked at her, startled by the quiet profundity of her words. You really are your mother's daughter. She stared at the custody papers Ethan's lawyers had sent. Not for Ava, but for control of Olaf International's pending investments in Roret Tech. A threat disguised in legal language. An invasion dressed as a family concern. Henry entered quietly. You're working late. Maria didn't look up. I never stopped. He sat beside her. I hate that this is happening because of me. No, she said. It's happening because Ethan never learned that power and love are different. Then, let me help you fight him. She finally met his gaze. You already are just by standing here. Reporters lined the courthouse steps. Inside, Ethan sat smugly beside his legal team. Maria stood beside Henry, their hands discreetly touching. The judge, a woman with kind eyes and a sharp tongue, reviewed the files. Mr. Olaf, you claim to be the brother of Ethan Olaf and the biological father of Ava Roret. Is yes, Your Honor? And your memory loss is documented? Yes. Why now? Why return? Henry spoke with quiet conviction. Because I finally found my family, and I refused to let them be hurt by someone who never wanted to protect them. Ethan interrupted. This is a spectacle. He only remembers what suits him. He could be manipulating them all. Maria stood. Then let the record show that manipulation is your specialty. Ethan, from business fraud to personal vendettas. This isn't about Henry. It's about you losing control. The courtroom stirred. The judge raised a hand. That's enough. I will issue a restraining order. Mr. Ethan Olaf will not contact Miss Roret or her daughter until the investigation concludes. Ethan stood abruptly. You can't shut me out. Henry smiled. Watch her. She can. The city shimmered below them. Maria leaned against the railing, the sapphire ring box resting beside her untouched glass of champagne. Henry approached slowly. You kept it. I don't wear things out of habit. I wait until I know what they mean. He nodded. Do you know now? She turned to face him, the breeze catching strands of her hair. Not everything. But I know I want you to stay. Not as Henry Olaf, not as a title. Just you. He reached for her hand, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. And I would like you to wear this, not as a symbol of the past, but as a promise for what comes next. She took a long breath. Then she opened the box, slipped the ring onto her finger, and kissed him. Not as a test, not for the cameras, but because the name between them no longer mattered. What mattered was what they chose to build from here. The golden afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of the conservatory at the Roret residence, casting soft shadows over a chessboard left unfinished on the coffee table. A knight poised mid-move, a queen cornered but not yet defeated. Maria sat nearby barefoot on the velvet chaise, sipping tea, with an air of quiet contentment that hadn't visited her in years. Her phone buzzed on the armrest. A message from the security team. Ethan Olaf has departed Atlanta. Surveillance withdrawn. She stared at the words for a long moment before locking her screen. The threat had left the city. But something more profound than fear still stirred inside her. Henry stood with Ava at her new easel, watching her paint a swirling scene of blue skies, purple trees, and stick-figure people with comically large heads. This one's you, Ava declared, pointing at the tallest figure, because you have the biggest brain. Henry chuckled. I thought Mommy had the biggest brain. She does. But you have the biggest memory, because you forgot so much and still remember the good parts. He knelt beside her. I remember you. That's the best part. She giggled, smearing purple across her cheek. Maria and Henry stood before a tall cabinet with labeled hard drives and encrypted files, a decade of digital history. Why are we here? Henry asked. Maria typed in a passcode and opened a drawer. Because if we want to own our future, we must understand the past, and yours is buried in these drives. This, she handed him a black external drive that contains the Olaf International internal communications from the last 7 years, including the 6 months leading up to your accident. Henry turned the device in his hands like it was fragile glass. You kept this. I copied it before I walked away, back when I didn't know why I was running. He met her eyes. You were trying to protect something. Yes, she whispered. My child. My heart. They sat in silence, the soft glow of the projector washing over them as they watched footage of boardroom meetings from years ago. Henry saw a younger version of himself, confident, calculating, magnetic. He barely recognized the man. One video time-stamped 4 days before the accident drew their attention. Henry stood at the head of the conference table defending an ethics clause in a merger contract. Ethan interrupted with barely concealed disdain. You're letting emotion blind you. Business doesn't make room for sentiment. Young Henry snapped back. Then you don't understand real legacy. Maria paused the video. He wanted you out of the way long before the accident. Henry nodded. And I gave him the perfect opportunity. You stood up for what mattered. That wasn't a weakness. No. Henry said softly, eyes on the frozen image of his former self. But it made me vulnerable. Maria surprised Henry with a trip. The secluded villa nestled between dunes and sea oats offered a rare stillness. It was here they had once vacationed briefly during their secret affair years ago, a memory Henry hadn't yet reclaimed. Maria said you brought me here before as they walked barefoot along the shoreline. Henry glanced at her. Did we fight? No, she smiled. We danced. On the deck. To no music. Henry stopped walking. That, I remember. Your hair smelled like rosemary. You were wearing a white dress. Her breath caught. You remember that? He closed his eyes. And you whispered, Don't promise me forever. Just promise me 1,000 tomorrows. Maria stared at him, emotion rising like the tide. He opened his eyes and reached for her hand. I never forgot you, Maria. I just lost the path back. She pulled him into an embrace. Past and present melted into something eternal on that quiet stretch of sand. Ethan stood before a fireplace, tossing documents into the flames. Legal notices, rejected merger contracts. An image of Henry and Maria in the press. They think they've won, he muttered. His assistant hovered nervously. Sir, the board has called an emergency meeting. They're requesting an audit. Ethan turned, eyes blazing. Then let them audit. They'll find nothing. If we move quickly. Dinner was simple. Seared scallops, asparagus, and a bottle of wine. Maria sat cross-legged on the porch floor, sipping, as Henry set down a plate. I always imagined you being terrible at cooking, she teased. I probably was, but now I follow instructions very well. She smiled, watching the flames of the outdoor lantern flicker. What would you do, she asked, if you had no obligations, no legacy to restore, just a blank slate? He didn't hesitate. I'd build something that lasts, something real, like a company. No, he said, looking directly at her. Like a life, with you, and Ava, and a little chaos sprinkled in. Maria blinked slowly. You always say the right thing at the wrong time. He leaned in. Then let me finally say it at the right time. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Not a ring, not a contract, but a handwritten letter. She opened it, read. It was a proposal, but not for marriage. It was for a partnership, a foundation, a scholarship in Ava's name, a new tech incubator for single mothers, a joint project to build something that reflected them. This is how we start, he said. Maria looked up, her voice caught with emotion. You remembered what matters. He took her hand. I remembered you. Maria stepped into the newly renovated lobby of Roret Tech. A marble plaque stood near the entrance. The Tomorrow Initiative, founded by Henry Olaf and Maria Roret. For the futures we choose, not the ones we inherit. Ava ran ahead, twirling under the high glass ceiling. Maria turned to Henry. "You realize this is just the beginning." He smiled. "Good. Because I'm not afraid of beginnings anymore." And a new story began. As they stood there, a man reclaiming himself, a woman rediscovering trust, and a child who had always believed in both. Not one written by memory, but one crafted in the now. The rain had returned to Atlanta, gentle but persistent, washing over the city like a quiet hymn. From the windows of the Roret penthouse, the skyline blurred behind mist and droplets, turning towers into specters and traffic into whispers. Maria stood barefoot in the kitchen, her silk robe belted casually as she stirred a pot of cinnamon oats. The morning was still too still. No emails pinging, no alarms blaring. Ava was asleep. Henry had gone for an early jog. For the first time in a long while, the world was soft. But Maria's thoughts were not. A new investor had reached out about the Tomorrow Initiative. Anonymous, generous, obsessively curious. Even through the cold text barrier, something in their tone unsettled her. She didn't like puzzles without edges. Ethan. Olaf stood before a digital wall of data blueprints, emails, legal threads, false identities. He sipped black coffee, slowly, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless calculation. "The Tomorrow Initiative," he murmured. "Let's see what you're really made of." His assistant nodded. "We've planted 2 silent bidders. Both accepted preliminary calls. Their backgrounds won't trace back." Ethan's lips curled. "They don't need to trace. They need to pull a string. One string and everything unravels." He turned to the window. "If I can't bury Henry, I'll bury what he believes in." Maria, Henry, and Ava attended a private gallery showcase, curated by one of Ava's school sponsors. Abstract pieces lined the minimalist space. Chaotic colors, incomplete faces, broken symmetry. There was an odd beauty in the disorder. Henry held Ava's hand as she walked him through her favorite piece, a riot of indigo and burnt orange. "This one reminds me of us," Ava said. Maria raised a brow. "How so?" "It looks messy, but it makes sense if you don't blink." Henry laughed. "You're 6. How do you talk like that?" "I read," she replied, as if that answered everything. As they approached their car, Maria slowed. A man in a charcoal coat leaned against the passenger side door. He wasn't holding a weapon, but his stance was loaded. Henry stepped in front of Maria instinctively. "Can we help you?" he asked, tone calm but firm. "Just wanted to say..." "Congratulations," the man said. "Your little project is making waves." Maria narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" "Call me a forecaster. I see storms before they hit, and you, Ms. Roret, are sailing straight into one." He tossed a card onto the windshield and disappeared into the shadows before security could reach him. On the card, a single line. "Not everyone wants a better tomorrow." Henry paced the living room, phone in hand. "I ran the license plate. No matches. The man's face isn't in any facial recognition database I can access." Maria poured herself a glass of water, then changed her mind and poured wine instead. "I'm not afraid," she said finally. "I am," Henry admitted. She looked over, surprised. "I found you. We found ourselves. But now that we have something real again, I can't lose it. Not to shadows. Not to men in coats." Maria crossed the room slowly and touched his cheek. "Then we stop waiting. We go on the offensive." In the center of the open concept workspace, Maria and Henry stood before a digital board displaying the complete list of investors, partners, and outside inquiries. Henry circled 3 names. "These aren't real people. not in the way they're pretending to be. Shell companies. Worse, their algorithms masked as stakeholders, deep-fake generated identities. Whoever is behind them is playing long-term. Maria frowned. Why go to such lengths to infiltrate a nonprofit? Because it's not just a nonprofit, it's a story. And stories are powerful. She nodded slowly. Then we write our own ending. Maria had arranged a confidential meeting with the Tomorrow Initiative's 5 largest real investors. The mountain air was sharp cleansing. Their lodge overlooked an endless forest that held no judgment. As she spoke, her voice was calm but edged with fire. We are being watched, manipulated, and possibly targeted. But this isn't just about security. It's about purpose. Each of you invested not just money but trust. I intend to honor that by protecting what we're building. One investor, an older woman with a background in counterintelligence, nodded. You're not overreacting. The patterns align with strategic dismantling. Someone wants your platform broken before it matures. Henry added, which means they fear its influence. A quiet settled. Maria looked around the room. Are you still with us? One by one, each hand raised. In Atlanta, Ava stayed with her godmother, a soft-spoken artist named June, who baked lemon tarts and played jazz while painting sunflowers. Do you miss them? June asked gently. Ava nodded. But Mommy told me this is their superhero mission. June smiled. Then what's your mission while they're gone? Ava held up her sketchbook. On the page, a drawing of a dragon breathing flowers instead of fire. To protect the world with beauty. Henry and Maria walked beneath the pine's lanterns guiding the path. Do you think we're winning? He asked. Maria didn't answer at first. Her hand found his. I think we're still standing. In our world, that means we haven't lost. He stopped and turned to her. Let's make a promise. She tilted her head. Another one. A different kind. Not about forever. About always. Always showing up. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She leaned in. Then I promise. And you better too. He kissed her forehead. Always. His phone rang. Sir, one of the shell investors was exposed. Ethan closed his laptop slowly. By whom? An anonymous trace route signed only with the Tomorrow Initiative motto. He leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. For the futures we choose, not the ones we inherit. Well played, Maria, he muttered. Then he smiled. But the end hasn't been written yet. He opened a hidden drawer, pulling out a manila envelope labeled Plan B, Roret Bloodline. The city of Atlanta shimmered beneath the haze of early summer heat. Skyscrapers sparkled under the sun, unaware of the quiet battle blooming in their shadows. In the Tomorrow Initiative's newly reinforced boardroom, Maria Roret reviewed the finalized cybersecurity protocols one last time. Double encryption, redundant backchannels, AI-monitored breach alerts. Henry read aloud beside her, impressed. You built a fortress. Maria didn't look up. I built a refuge, and I won't let anyone take it. Henry placed a hand over hers. They won't. Not this time. Their fingers lingered. But before the moment could settle, her assistant poked in. Ms. Roret, there's a visitor. He says he knows you. Name's Philip Maris. Maria froze. Henry frowned. Who is he? Maria stood slowly. A name I buried years ago. Maria stepped into the sunlight, every breath careful. Seated at the stone bench was a man in his 60s, gray at the temples, posture sharp despite the cane beside him. He rose when he saw her. You grew into your mother's elegance. Maria didn't smile. You forfeited the right to bring her name into this. Philip inclined his head. Fair. But I came to warn you. Ethan isn't acting alone. Maria folded her arms. And you suddenly care. Because the documents he holds, they don't just implicate you. They link your mother's death to something far larger. Her throat tightened. That accident was no accident, Philip interrupted. It was silenced. The same way he plans to silence you. Ava lay sprawled on her rug, assembling a mechanical puzzle designed for children twice her age. June, her godmother, watched with quiet pride. What are you building now, little sunflower? A listening bug, like the one Mommy found in her office last week. June raised a brow. You remembered what that looked like? Ava shrugged. I don't forget much. Henry sifted through locked drawers in a storage vault Maria rarely visited. Her past had always been walled off, carefully curated even to herself. He found a dusty file marked Roret-Leland merger proposal unratified inside letters. Handwritten notes. Photographs. One in particular made his breath catch. A young Maria, maybe 17, standing beside a woman with knowing eyes and a smile like Ava's. His fingers trembled. Behind the photo is a crumpled birth certificate. It had been amended. Twice. He reread it. Then again. Then he closed the drawer quietly, as if the truth might echo if he wasn't gentle. Maria stared up at the stars, a glass of wine in her hand. Her expression unreadable. Henry approached slowly, something unspoken sitting behind his gaze. You knew, didn't you? Maria didn't answer right away. That your mother didn't just die. That she was part of something more profound. I suspected. But I was 17. No one listens to a girl grieving. He sat beside her. I found the amended birth certificate. Maria turned to him, suddenly fragile in a way he'd never seen. She changed my name. To protect me. From the men she worked for. She left Roret behind until I brought it back. Henry exhaled. So Ethan's not after you. He's after what your mother built. Maria nodded. And what she buried. She knows, his assistant whispered. Maris approached her. Ethan swore. Then she's 2 steps ahead, which means we burn the evidence before she uncovers it. The assistant hesitated. And the bloodline file. Ethan paused, then picked up the manila envelope marked Plan B, Roret bloodline. We leak it. Let the world question Ava's legacy. Let Maria lose her strongest armor, public trust. The news broke with cruel precision. Leaked documents. A mysterious clause from Maria's sealed family estate. Claims that Ava was not biologically Henry's, nor even Maria's in a legal sense, but part of a trust tied to a defunct European conglomerate with shadowy origins. Maria read the headlines in silence. Henry read her face. They're trying to erase her. Maria looked up, eyes shining. And I won't let them. Maria stood before a forest of microphones. Her voice did not shake. Her poise was not performative. Today, a piece of my history was twisted into weaponry. But I will not apologize for the secrets of others, only for what I choose to do with them now. She turned to the cameras. Ava Roret is mine. By blood, by soul, by every sleepless night, and every morning filled with joy. No legacy predates that. Flashbulbs flickered like stars. She ended with one line. Truth is not what we inherit. It's what we choose to protect. Henry found her in the nursery, sitting beside Ava's bed, stroking her hair. She doesn't know, Maria whispered. Not the lies. Not the games. Henry sat down behind her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. Let her keep her magic. We'll carry the weight until she's ready. Maria leaned into him. She asked me tonight if love can be attacked. And you said that love isn't a fortress, it's a fire. Even when it flickers, it never stops burning. Henry kissed the crown of her head. In Ava's sketchbook, between scribbles of dragons and robots, was a new drawing. Three figures holding hands. Overhead, a storm cloud tried to rain on them, but instead of water, it rained light. And beneath the picture in Ava's careful print, "No one can erase us." We draw again. The quiet of early morning draped itself over the Roret penthouse like a velvet curtain. Rain had fallen at night, leaving the city below slick with light. On the terrace, Maria stood alone, her shawl barely clinging to her shoulders, eyes fixed on the horizon where the skyline blurred into mist. Inside, Henry watched her from the doorway. He knew that stance, chin-high shoulders, still the weight of truth, balanced delicately on her back. It was the pose she wore before battle. "You didn't sleep," he said softly, stepping out beside her. "Neither did the internet," she replied dryly. Another article, another rumor, another whisper, designed to twist the truth into something monstrous. Henry took her hand. "People will believe what they need to, but those who matter will remember what they've seen with their own eyes." She turned to him, then the vulnerability behind her gaze barely concealed. "And what do you see, Henry? When you look at me now?" He didn't hesitate. "I see the woman who carried an empire and a daughter with the same tenderness. I see why I returned even before I knew who I was." Her breath caught. "Then hold on," she whispered, "because the next storm won't come quietly." Ava was sitting cross-legged on the floor, headphones on, sketching yet another fantastical creature, half lion, half unicorn, whole sass. Across from her, Maria spoke with their communications director. The leak was targeted, coordinated, and funded. We traced 3 fake accounts directly to an international defamation farm. Ethan possibly, or someone worse. Maria sat straighter. "We don't hide. We redirect. We give them a story so true, so intimate, they choke on it." The director blinked. "You want to go public?" "With Ava." Maria nodded. "But on our terms. I want control of the camera, the questions, the silence." The space was simple. White backdrop, 1 camera, 1 chair. Ava's art was taped gently along the edge of the wall. Maria sat first, hands folded. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was 23. I had just walked away from a deal that would have made me rich and miserable. I chose love. And when I thought that love had died, I chose legacy." She looked into the lens. Ava Roret is not a symbol. She's not an asset. She's a child with a voice louder than any boardroom, a mind brighter than any scandal, and a heart strong enough to forgive the world for trying to erase her. Then Henry sat beside her. "I lost my memory, but I never lost my instinct. When I first saw Ava, I didn't know she was mine, but something in me knew. And now I know this. If you want to define us by bloodlines, you're missing the miracle entirely." Across social media, the response was volcanic. Tears, outrage. Thousands of parents posted their children's art with the hashtag #WeDrawAgain. Maria's quote trended for 2 days. "Truth is not what we inherit. It's what we choose to protect." And in the quiet corner of her daughter's room, Maria read a letter that arrived without a return address. "They tried to erase my daughter too. Thank you for reminding me that the world doesn't decide our worth." "They flipped the narrative," his strategist muttered. Ethan slammed his glass down. "Then we burn what they love most." Maria, no. The child. Maria and Henry took Ava to a quiet cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains, far from flashing lights and gossip. There were fireflies, pancakes, and bedtime stories that ended in giggles. On the second night, as they sat around the fire pit, Ava asked Mommy, "When did you fall in love with Daddy?" Maria smiled, glancing at Henry. "The first time he opened a door without asking me to follow. He just waited, patiently." Henry chuckled. And I think I fell in love when you yelled at me in 4 languages during a snowstorm in Prague. Ava blinked. What were you fighting about? Maria replied. I wanted him to wear a scarf. He thought it was optional. Ava giggled. That's silly. Scarves are important. The break-in was quiet, calculated. Henry woke first to the creak of floorboards. Then the red flash of a motion sensor went dark. He moved swiftly, barefoot silent. Maria was already by Ava's room, clutching her daughter to her chest. Stay here, he whispered. Henry faced the intruder alone in the hallway. Masked, armed, but not prepared. Henry fought like a man who had already died once and decided he wasn't leaving again. Within minutes, the attacker lay unconscious, bound by Maria, with a phone charger and a curtain tie. The police arrived 15 minutes later. Ava never cried. She watched her parents hold each other in the doorway, trembling. The attack dominated headlines. The masked intruder had no ID, no prints, no voice. Henry addressed the press himself. We are not victims. We are a family. And no amount of fear will change that. Maria stood beside him. We were tasked to build something that didn't exist yet. A better future. That threat remains. But so do we. Henry sat at the edge of Ava's bed. You okay, Starshine? Ava nodded. Were they trying to steal me? Henry swallowed. Maybe, but they can't, because we'll always find you. She reached out and touched his cheek. And I'll always remember, even if you forget again. I'll remember us. He pulled her into his arms, tears silent. In the hallway, Maria watched them. She held her phone, hovering over the contact labeled Director Leland, Geneva. And she whispered to herself, if they want war, they'll get it. But it won't be fought in shadows anymore. The Geneva sky was iron gray, heavy with silence that never meant peace. Maria stepped off the private jet, wrapped in a wool coat, the color of storm clouds. Her posture regal, her heart a riot of war drums. Henry followed behind, shielding Ava from the biting wind. They weren't just in Switzerland for diplomacy. This was personal. Maria held a letter from Director Elise Leland of the International Legacy Council in her gloved hand. A meeting had been arranged. The past had been summoned. Are you ready? Henry asked. Maria didn't answer. She looked toward the looming glass tower across the tarmac and whispered, let them remember who we are. Director Leland was waiting. White-haired, sharp-eyed voice clipped with the weight of 40 years of secrets. Maria Roret, daughter of Ariel Leland, and the mother of Ava Roret, Maria said evenly. Why bring the child? Maria smiled faintly. Because this time, the bloodline walks in on her own feet. 10 figures sat in a crescent of marble and gold. Representatives from old families, some known, others, long buried behind shell companies and ancient laws. Before them, Maria stood alone. Henry waited outside with Ava, nerves tightening around his ribs. He had faced CEOs, boards, and billionaires, but never the ghosts of a dynasty. Inside, Maria began. You accused my mother of betrayal. You called her death a consequence, and now you wish to erase her granddaughter for carrying a name you no longer control. Murmurs rose. One councilwoman leaned forward. The Roret name was never yours to reclaim. Maria met her gaze. And yet, here I am, building what your sons destroyed. Not with power, with purpose. Another voice cut through. What do you want from us? Acknowledgement. And your silence. I don't want your protection. I want your absence. Henry sat beside Ava on the suite balcony, trying to mask his restlessness. Daddy is mommy fighting dragons. He smiled, something like that. Ava was drawing again this time, a crown split in two with a tree growing through it. "What does this mean?" he asked. "That families are like forests. The old trees fall, but the roots stay." Henry looked at her in awe. "Who taught you that?" I heard it in Mommy's voice when she reads to me. Director Leland stood slowly. "You ask us to let go of a legacy we curated for generations." Maria tilted her head. "No, I'm showing you that legacy lives where love does. Ava is not a vessel for your power. She is a wildfire, and no court in the world can contain her." Silence fell. Then Leland spoke again. "So what happens next?" Maria stepped forward. "You walk away, and you let us rise without your shadow." After a long pause, Leland nodded once. "The bloodline war ends today." Maria, Henry, and Ava dined under low candlelight in a small family-run inn just outside Geneva. There were no cameras, no press, just the scent of rosemary bread and the warmth of something earned. Henry raised his glass. "To Ariel Leland, the woman who taught you to fight with fire and finish with grace." Maria clinked her glass. "And to the man who reminded me, love can survive 1,000 storms." Ava lifted her orange juice. "And to the girl who drew dragons that turned into trees." They laughed. But Maria's phone buzzed quietly in her coat pocket, a message. No name, just coordinates. And a single word: soon. Ethan stood before a vault inputting a code. The door opened to reveal a sleek case. Inside it, a small vial sealed in titanium. "The bloodline isn't just legacy," he said to the silent room. "It's leverage." He turned toward a shadowy man. "Are you ready to rewrite everything?" The man nodded, and behind him, a blueprint for something not yet named. Something terrifying. Zurich was a city of quiet secrets. Beneath its polished elegance and ticking precision, centuries of ambition hummed in marble corridors and encrypted networks. And somewhere in its shadows, Ethan Olaf held the final move. Maria knew this. She also knew one truth. The most dangerous men aren't those who want power. They're the ones who believe they deserve it. Henry paced the foyer, his nerves raw. "You shouldn't go alone." Maria fastened her coat. "He won't harm me." "Not yet. He still wants to be seen as untouchable." "And if he doesn't care anymore," Maria stepped closer. "Then you burn everything he built. And you protect her." Their foreheads touched briefly, an unspoken vow between breaths. The estate was cold, sleek, and soulless. A house that had never been a home. Ethan waited on the upper balcony, flanked by glass and silence. Maria approached calmly, though her heart echoed like war drums. "You summoned me," she said. "I came to finish this." Ethan smiled thinly. "You always liked an audience." "Not anymore. Now I like consequences." He gestured toward a case on the table. "This," he said, "is Ava's blood, stolen from a clinic during her allergy screening. One vial, one chance to decide how history remembers her." Maria didn't flinch. "You won't use it. Because if you do, you destroy the last piece of your legacy." It was never about legacy. It was about leverage. "And what will it buy you now?" "Ethan, respect, redemption, relevance," he said. "The one currency even death can't erase." She stepped forward. "You're wrong. Relevance is earned by those brave enough to build, not steal. And today, the world sees what you've become." Henry, June, and Ava stood in the new conference hall in Atlanta. The cameras rolled. Screens flickered. Maria's conversation was being streamed live with full consent and covert capture. As Ethan's threats unfolded, the world watched as he waved a child's DNA like a business card. Watched him fall. Realizing what had happened, Ethan lunged for the case. Maria was faster. "Your story ends here," she said, stepping back as security entered. summoned from the perimeter. "You think I care about prison?" "No," she said. "You care about being forgotten." Ethan was taken away in silence. Maria stood on a stage built on the rooftop of the Tomorrow Initiative's new Zurich branch. Henry held Ava in his arms, standing with the crowd of global partners and students. Maria spoke. "This began as a story of revenge, of memory lost and love rediscovered. But it became something more, a declaration that our children are not bargaining chips, that our futures are not built on fear." Applause rippled like sunlight. "We built this initiative not to erase history, but to rewrite it with grace, grit, and truth." She turned to Ava. "This is for you, Starshine, because you believed before we did." Henry brought out a small velvet box. Maria sighed with a smile. Another proposal. He opened it. Not a ring, a golden key. "To the house we designed. The one you sketched when you were 19. Maria blinked, overwhelmed. "You remembered. I never forgot. I just got lost." She took the key, her hand trembling. "Let's go home." Ava ran across a field dotted with wildflowers. The house in the background was all light and open windows, laughter spilling from its walls. Maria watched from a blanket under the trees with a sketchbook in her lap. Henry returned from the garden, dirt on his hands, sun in his hair. He sat beside her. "Have you ever thought we'd get here?" Maria smiled. "No, but I never stopped choosing it, even when it felt impossible." They kissed slow and soft, the kind of kiss that speaks of battles won and promises kept. And in the distance, Ava shouted, "Come on, let's build a castle." Maria stood. "Let's build a world."